Shannon counts to 3.
1, 2, 3.
Well, hello, Hofstra fans. Welcome to our next question and answer with Hofstra head coach Shannon Smith. Coach Smith, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, Stephen. Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. How are you holding up right now?
Doing well. It's been a little bit of an adjustment, I guess, being home for so long, but started to get in the swing of things. So I think the biggest thing is just trying to stay on a routine as best as you can.
Well said, and always hope that everyone in your family is doing well right now.
Yes, everyone is safe and healthy, which we're really fortunate and lucky. How about you, Stephen? How's your family doing?
Everybody's doing well. Thank you for asking. So, Shannon, we thank you for joining us tonight. Looking forward to chatting with you about your life, your career, Hofstra women's lacrosse, and everything in between. Hofstra fans, if you have any questions for Coach Smith, be sure to put them in the chat window on the YouTube page, and we'll get to them. Shannon, let's start. You just finished up your 8th year, the most unique year of lacrosse in the history of your life, I'm sure. You actually texted me something over the weekend, which I found remarkable. You want to repeat what you said to me over the weekend?
Yeah, it was something that a few of my friends and also my family, we were talking about. I would say this is probably in 20 years, the first time I was not involved with lacrosse during Memorial Day weekend. Since I was a young kid when I started playing lacrosse, it's a big weekend for lacrosse tournaments, Memorial Day weekend. Then I was fortunate enough in college to be playing every weekend in a Final Four. And then, during college, being a college coach, recruiting this weekend usually on Saturdays, and then watching lacrosse being played this weekend. So definitely strange not having lacrosse and being involved with it for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah, it's certainly a remarkable time and a unique time for you as a coach to be involved in. Let's start. Shannon, obviously, most people know about your history in the sport and the remarkable player you were. Growing up, let's start there. At what point growing up did you know that lacrosse was the sport that you love the most, and kind of maybe that you really excelled at the most?
It's a great question. I think, at such a young age, I played so many sports. I was always a kid that liked to be outside, liked to always be active. Whether it was, I grew up playing soccer, played basketball. I played travel basketball and soccer as well, all the way up until high school, along with lacrosse. And then it came a point where my parents were like, all right, we really have to start choosing a sport here. And I was starting to have more success with lacrosse. So I started to really focus on the game of lacrosse more, and sticking to travel lacrosse. And then, but I still played soccer and basketball throughout high school. So I played 3 sports. But I would definitely say that still to this day, I love basketball. It's really, truly one of my favorite sports to play, to watch college basketball. And, I'm a big tennis fan as well, and was lucky enough to play tennis as well once in high school too.
What was there a point? Obviously, you're one of the greatest lacrosse players that Long Island has ever seen. Was there a point when you made the varsity team? I believe it was 7th grade. Am I getting that correctly? Where you knew that you had a future in the sport in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, so I was really late to joining the game of lacrosse. I didn't start lacrosse until probably about 6th grade, 5th, 6th grade. Always played it like a little bit in the backyard. And West Babylon was definitely in the stages of growing the sport. There was definitely a varsity team, but definitely in the stages of growing the sport and growing the numbers in our town. So definitely got lucky being pulled up. You had to pass like a physical test to be able to play up on varsity. And, I did, and I was lucky enough to really have some older kids on the team that took me underneath their wing, and helped guide me throughout that process. Being in 7th and 8th grade, playing up on varsity with 11th grade and 12th graders. So it was definitely interesting, but definitely enjoyed the process at such a young age, and I think it helped me because I was playing at such a competitive game of lacrosse at such a young age.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the varsity level versus junior varsity or middle school level is such a different level. In high school, there's a lot more dynamics involved in that varsity level. There's kids that want to go to college for whatever to play sports or other reasons. Did you find that you excelled by being engulfed in that at such an early age?
I would say yes. And I think I also excel just growing up with my family. I have a large family of cousins on both sides, mom and dad's side. And I have a younger brother and sister as well. And we're close in age. So I think growing up, playing sports outside, I was always super competitive. I'm a very competitive person, whether it's playing board games, playing cards, who was the first one to get to the car, to get to the front seat when you were younger. So I think that competitive edge, and having those competitive games in the backyard with your siblings or if it was with your cousins, I think, helped drive me to be competitive when I was playing high school sports, and to not back down when I was playing against older kids.
So great players never have any idea about their records. Are you aware of like how many points you scored in high school? Do you know those numbers?
I do not know those numbers.
Yeah, no one ever knows. We even asked Alyssa Perella on Teammate Trivia. She had no idea about her points. She was off by like 150, I think.
Yeah, I did see that with her and Darcy, which was really, they did a really great job with that. They're really funny together.
Well, you scored 729 points on 505 goals, 224 assists during your scholastic career. Do you look back at that at time as just a remarkable time in your life, and how you managed to become the lacrosse player you became in your life?
I think just really fortunate. Had a lot of really great teammates in high school, with the game of lacrosse. So at a young age, Carol Donahue was a really, great player on our program, and did really well at Bucknell. And I was very fortunate. Alyssa Murray, who played at Syracuse, we got to play 4 years together in high school. So I think a lot of my goals were definitely assisted by Alyssa. So I think just very fortunate to play with a lot of really great players. And I think if you look at the history, West Babylon's a super small town, and maybe not known for the game of lacrosse. But I think if you look at each year and the specific players that have come out of West Babylon. I think they've all had really successful careers in college. So it's definitely something I'm proud of for where I grew up and the high school that I came from, and just really fortunate for the coaches I had. But I would definitely, give a big shout out to my parents. My dad definitely spending that extra time going out on the field with me and playing lacrosse. And when my dad was working, I definitely do remember pulling my mom out sometimes in the backyard, or rebounding basketballs for me in the street. So definitely give a lot of credit to my parents and my siblings, but also a lot of credit to the players that I played with, my teammates in high school.
We'll get to each level as we progress through this chat, but best player you played against in high school and best player you played with in high school.
Best player against. It's a really great question. I would probably say Shaylin Blaney from Ward Melville High School. She went to Notre Dame. I think that, she was super aggressive. She could get up and down the field, did an unbelievable job in the midfield, and was definitely very tenacious on the field. She was a really great player. I would say best player played with, would be Alyssa Murray. She was an unbelievable lefty attacker, was really great at feeding the ball on the inside, and I could be covered, and, she would still get the ball in there. So I think, it was definitely an honor to play with her.
So we got some questions from the chat window. Let's see what we got for you. Coach, people are always interested in scheduling. How does a lacrosse coach like you put together a schedule? Before this year was cut short, this was literally maybe the most difficult schedule in the nation, definitely the most difficult schedule you've ever put together at Hofstra. How do you go about putting this schedule together for college teams, particularly yours?
It's a great question. I think it's, everyone always says scheduling's a science. And I think sometimes you just you try to schedule teams that you can compete with that are from different conferences that are going to give you, a higher strength of schedule, RPI points, but, you're relying on those teams to have, be successful as well, because you want to set yourself up as a coach to be able to get an at-large bid if you don't win your conference tournament. So, you try to do your best in setting that up. It's definitely hard. I don't think I think if you ask most coaches, it's hard to do. But I think this year, the reason why we had such a tough schedule was just due to the leadership that we had on our team within our junior and senior classes. I thought that our team was prepared to play a tougher schedule in the non-conference to really prepare us for our conference schedule. And, we had a really great outing against USC, lost by 1 goal to them, and they were ranked 7th in the country. A really great comeback win to Hopkins, and then we had 2 tough games against Maryland and Boston College. And I think our team was going to learn a lot. So I think it would have been interesting to see how we would have finished out the rest of our season in March.
Yeah, you said it there. You kind of manage based on the team you think you have. Is that kind of the mentality you go into scheduling with?
Yeah, I think you have to definitely manage with the players and the team that you have. Some years you're going to be stronger than others, and I think as a coach you have to understand that and schedule your schedule around that to give your team the most confidence, but also to be able to challenge them to set you up for your conference schedule so you're ready to play for the most important part of your season, which is the month of April in the CAA.
Yeah, Coach Mihalik, the men's basketball coach, had mentioned it when I kind of asked the same question. His non-conference philosophy is a little bit, he tries to play teams that are similar to teams in conference. So to help prepare his team, like somebody might play like Towson that he schedules. Is there any does that happen in lacrosse as much or no?
I would say I don't do that. It's a really interesting point that Coach Mihalik had. I would say that we pretty much this year, if you look at our schedule, we scheduled the best of the best. It was, if you want to be great, you got to play with the best teams and you have to want to beat them. So I think for us, it's more or less trying to schedule tough teams that are at a conference that are going to challenge us and we can compete with and put ourselves in a position to win, but also put ourselves in a position to gain confidence and learn a lot about our team before we get to April.
Let's move back to another question here from the chat window. Shannon, you obviously, your career has been remarkable, and your head coaching career kind of was remarkable. You got the job, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 months after graduating from Northwestern, or 3 months?
I guess, yeah, 2 months. Yeah, 2 months.
What was that process like that summer when you realized you had an opportunity to become a college coach at such a young age, and what were the challenges and the positives to it?
Definitely strange and a wild experience, but one that I definitely do not regret at all. I think that, I'm trying to think now this whole process. So graduated in June, Northwestern's trimester. So we don't graduate until June when you finish out school. And then when I
Oh, so
graduated,
I did the math wrong in my head.
when I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, to be honest. I had a couple of different options. I was an economics major in college. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I wanted to come back home after living in the Midwest for 4 years. Wasn't sure that I wanted to college coach. I had a few conversations with different coaches, and the thought process then came up of, let's maybe look at Hofstra and go back to grad school and see they have a graduate assistant position where you can coach and then also get your schooling paid for, and then figure it out over the next year or two of maybe what you want to do. And going through that process, Hofstra didn't have a head coach. And I started to meet and talk to different people. Danny McCabe and Cindy Lewis were two people that I met with. And I did go in prepared. I think that was one thing that I learned at Northwestern from Kelly is always be prepared, whether it's a meeting, do your research. So I definitely did my research on Hofstra and the program and went prepared just in case they asked me questions. And slowly but surely, I kept meeting different people and going through the process. And I think after speaking with a couple of people, I thought that, and I believed in myself that I could do it. I think it was going to be a change and you're going to have to learn a lot. And I think looking back at it now, have learned a lot over these 8 years, that is for sure. And I don't think I would have done it differently just because I was able to make mistakes on my own, make decisions, and to be able to learn and grow throughout those times, and have really great mentors throughout to be able to guide me as well.
What was that moment like when you got the offer to be the head coach at Hofstra? Do you remember it still?
Yeah, I was down in Florida actually, coaching, and I got the phone call, and they asked me to get up to Long Island right away, and I packed my bags. I remember I had to leave. Our team was still playing, and my parents dropped me off at the airport, and I flew back up to Long Island, and it was definitely a surreal moment. I remember, that next day sitting in the office and taking a couple spins in the chair and being like, what just happened? What did I get myself into? But then really dialed down and buckled down to get to work.
Great. We got another great question here coming in, similar to we get for every coach during this COVID-19 time. What have you found yourself doing more now since you have a lot more time from a lacrosse perspective with all the extra time you have? Is it looking at more film from either your team or other teams, kind of seeing new possible offensive, defensive schemes you could do with your team? What have you found yourself more occupied with that maybe you wouldn't do in a normal May?
Yeah, I think right now, like over the past month and a half, we found ourselves really occupied just with like our team and having more time to just talk to them and talk about different leadership styles and help grow them into different leaders and learning from the girls as well. Personally on the lacrosse side as coaches, just continuing to look at the season and look at past seasons and future seasons to where we're going to be, positives and negatives. How can we continue to grow as a coaching staff? And then just personally, just having the time that I have, getting to read books more, and sometimes, putting that cell phone away and not looking at it and just being able to relax and have more moments to yourself than what you would normally have during season.
So we can move on in the Shannon Smith life. So you finish your career at West Babylon High School and you decide to attend Northwestern. What was the process like for you choosing Northwestern? That was kind of right after they became the the dominant team, right? They had started a little bit right before that.
Yes, they did start before that. I believe they won, actually, probably not right before. They won 4 consecutive national championships before I got there.
Right. So they were the dominant team in the country at that moment, with Kelly leading the charge. What was the process like for you for choosing what college you were going to attend, and how did you settle on Northwestern?
Stephen, you're really testing my memory here with going back. But yeah, before I got to Northwestern, they won 4 consecutive national championships, and I guess going through that process, they won their first or second national championship, and it was September 1st was the date, so got a lot of contact from different coaches, and went through the process diligently with my parents. I think a focus was going to be, academically, what schools we're going to have, what I wanted to study academically, financially, how could we make it work as a family, and then also like team wise, what team was I going to fit into, and coaching style was I going to fit into. And went through that process. I visited a lot of different campuses, went on a lot of different visits, and when it came down to it, I really fell in love with Northwestern. Its campus is absolutely gorgeous. I fell in love with their economics program that they had, and then obviously the lacrosse team, and being able to play for Kelly, and being able to play on that lacrosse team with the different people I was able to meet. And ironically, I was able to go to college with 3 of my best friends from Long Island. So 4 of us in that class went out to be freshmen at Northwestern. And before I committed to Northwestern, I was on the USA under-19 team. So one of my other really good friends, Colleen McGarity, I was able to play with her and learn more about Northwestern as well. And she was committed there. So it was definitely a really fun experience. And, I'll have a lot of lifelong friends from playing there.
The stories you hear about Northwestern when it was growing as a program and became the most dominant team in the sport was that Kelly would find literally players on campus and make them into lacrosse stars. Are those accurate? And is that kind of a testament to that she was recruiting just incredible athletes at the time that she made into lacrosse superstars?
That is very true, and that is a true story. Kelly actually did a podcast maybe a month or 2 ago, and she actually talked about that story and how it worked itself out. But she saw the Custer twins playing with one another. I think it was a football catch, and she drove by, gave them lacrosse sticks, and told them to come to her office after Thanksgiving and figure out this is something you want to play. And they won a national championship. They're All-Americans as defenders. So it's definitely a true story. I think that Kelly does a really great job with her program of not always recruiting like those top recruits, but also recruiting the players from different regions of the country and developing them. And I think she's done that throughout from when the program first started to now. I think she's done a really great job with that. I think, speaking of the team right now, Izzy Skane, probably not a big name that a lot of people knew about. And she's off to having a really tremendous career there. And I remember Taylor Thornton, when I played with her as well, she came in and couldn't really catch and throw the ball, but, gave it 2 or 3 months, and all of a sudden, as a freshman, she was lights out as season progressed. So I think they would do a really great job at developing players and look for those really fast, athletic kids who play multiple sports.
And the team continued to have success while you were a student athlete at Northwestern. You won 3 NCAA titles, including the final one you won was on Long Island as well, right?
Yeah, actually the final 2 national championships I played in were both on Long Island in my junior and senior year.
And you won both titles. You obviously had an incredible amount of success during your playing career. Is there a moment that stands out other than the national titles that you look back at it fondly and just say like it was really a dream come true?
I think just like remembering the stories that you have and the times that you spend with your teammates, whether it's in the hotels or the bus trips, flying on the airplanes. We had a lot of delays in the airports. I think actually one funny story, I can't remember if it was my junior or senior year, but we were flying to the Final Four, and we got to the airport super early. I want to say we were leaving Northwestern at like 4:35 a.m. to get to the airport. And it was bad weather on Long Island and in the Midwest. And we stayed in that airport for a solid 12 to 14 hours inside of it before our flight, finally took off. We missed our practice time and everything. So it was definitely really strange. But I think the thing about Northwestern is we're still in school when the Final Four is going on. So a lot of us just sat there and did schoolwork. But that was definitely an experience because it's hard to keep yourself occupied and busy in an airport for 12 to 14 hours.
So you were on, like I said, 3 national championship teams, 2009, 2011, 2012. Put you on the spot here. Which was the best team you played on at Northwestern?
I would say I think each year is completely different.
You're taking the easy way out.
I know. But I would say my freshman year, the team was just unbelievable. In terms of, you just knew you were going to, I know this sounds really bad, how it's going to come out of my mouth, but we had such a dominant senior class my freshman year. And, they won 4 national championships. We just completely demolished, that season. We went undefeated in every game, and it was truly a tremendous year. My freshman year, we had a tremendous senior class, but I would think if you asked anyone in my class that I graduated with, I think they would say probably our junior season was one of the most fun seasons and teams to play on, for sure.
And speaking of your junior season, that was probably the highlight of your career. Remarkable year you had. In addition to the national title, you were the Thwarton Award winner. You won the Hanzo Award. Tell me, what's the moment like for somebody winning the Thwarton? And for those not familiar, the Thwarton is literally the Heisman of lacrosse. They give it out to a male and female winner every year. What's that moment like, and leading up to it? Obviously, you go to a wonderful function and you're with the other finalists. What's that like for you?
It's a tremendous honor. It's one, though, that you wouldn't be there without your teammates and your coaches. I think, it was really fun having my teammates at the event with me in Washington, D.C. But I think one of the coolest parts are the nights leading up to the event, spending it with the finalists from the women's side and also the men's side, and getting to know everyone and getting to know their families, I think is definitely really cool. And it's something that they continue to do with the Thwarton. So I would say those 2 nights leading up to the Thwarton is fun, getting to meet everyone.
So where is the trophy? Do they give you a trophy for yourself?
They do. It's in my office. It's in my office.
Oh, I do. I know, right under your TV. I know exactly where it is. I knew the answer to that question. I just forgot.
You set me up for that one.
I actually forgot as I was asking it. So you graduate in 2012. You win the final game of your career on Long Island. What's that last championship like? Is it just pure jubilation, or are you realizing that you are now finished playing lacrosse?
No, it's a lot of fun. I think that it takes a lot of hard work to get to a Final Four. I would say the hardest game up to the Final Four is the quarterfinals. It's always getting to the Final Four. And then once you're there, all the hard work and the ups and downs that you had throughout your seasons to get there. And by the time your senior year comes around, your body's really banged up. So I think, being there to be able to contribute, to be able to help the team, to be able to win another national championship. And I remember the players in my class, like I said, 4 of us were from Long Island. Just to be able to finish our careers where our careers started with the game of lacrosse, really went full circle for us. And I don't think I could write that ending any better.
Yeah, well said. Let's go back. We got a few questions coming in the chat window. Did you realize at any point in your life, you talked about it earlier, but when you obviously ended up becoming a lacrosse coach, what point in your life did you realize maybe coaching lacrosse was something you wanted to do? Obviously, you have a deep past with the club aspect of it as well.
I think that, I think I get it from my dad. He really does love studying games, studying sports, being able to coach kids. My parents run a club lacrosse program, so I was able to, coach there. And while I was in college, being able to individually train kids, I just fell in love with coaching and to be able to help. And I think just being able to give back to the youth on Long Island for everything I was able to do at such a young age for the game of lacrosse, and to be able to help someone else and to be able to give them those keys to be able to be successful, whether it's, making the USA under 19 team or playing college, having an opportunity to, win a national championship was something that, I always wanted to do.
What are some difference you see in the women's game from now until when you were growing up and as a player at Northwestern? How has the game advanced, and are you excited about the advancements it's made over the last 15 years?
Game has changed tremendously since I've been in college. So when I was in college, there was no shot clock. You could hold that ball as long as you wanted to if you were up. And it's definitely something that we took advantage of at Northwestern on offense. There was no free movement. The draw was a lot different. So I think the game's faster. And I think it's more watchable for people with the speed of the game. I would like to see a few more changes, and we'll see what happens moving forward in the game. But the faster that we can make it, I'm definitely all for it.
So you're happy with the progress the sport has made over the last few years, right?
Yeah, 100%. I think the progress is huge for our game. It's only getting our game more media attention, more opportunities to be able to be played on TV. And this weekend I did watch some of the girls' games that were on ESPNU for the national championship, and it was just funny watching the progression of the game over those 6 years that they did show.
Yeah, and that's really the remarkable part about it. It's almost like the TV aspect of women's lacrosse getting more TV attention has pushed the sport to make advancements to make it more TV friendly.
Definitely. And I think they're going to try to continue to make it more TV friendly. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you see quarters. I think that's something that coaches are talking about.
Also less confusing overtimes.
Yes, less confusing overtimes would be huge. I even always have to question the referees on that too. I'm like, so I don't get a timeout every time we have a 3-minute period. They're like, no, two of the 3-minute periods equal only 1 overtime. So hopefully that's something that can change too.
We got a funny question here for you, Coach. You ready? What is it like to see Coach Seth Tierney? For those that don't know, Coach Tierney's daughter, Erin, is a sophomore, rising junior on the women's lacrosse team here at Hofstra. Coach Tierney is our men's lacrosse coach. What is it like to see Coach Tierney as a father at team functions and not as the men's lacrosse coach?
Seth is, one of my mentors, and he's a tremendous guy. I think he has a really great relationship with both of his kids, both Erin and Ryan. It's really tremendous to watch, and I'm sure it's not easy in his position being able to balance that, being able to balance, coaching his son, also being a father, and then also being able to give his daughters tips. He's definitely watching our practices up in his office, and is the first to tell Erin when she makes mistakes on the field during games. So it's fun to definitely watch that and watch him balance that. But he's a tremendous father, and he has a really great relationship with both of his kids.
It's funny really to see the dynamics of him as the lacrosse coach and the father of the lacrosse player at Hofstra. It's an interesting and unique situation.
Erin definitely has her father's witty comments. She's very quick on her feet with her comments, just like Seth.
Yeah, see, he is quite witty. Do you remember the first Hofstra women's lacrosse game you ever attended before you were the coach?
I don't remember, but I do remember attending games and watching games with my dad growing up. Hofstra has really tremendous program with a lot of successful teams. Back from the 2001 to like 2008, there's been a lot of success with those alumni, and you know, it's been fun. We actually had a couple of Zoom meetings, getting to know them and getting to hear their stories. But there's definitely a lot of success, and I had the honor of being able to watch them on Long Island as I grew up playing the game.
So while you were playing, the pro leagues in women's lacrosse had not really started yet. You missed that boat by a few years, but in the last, I guess, roughly 4 years, I guess 2016 was the first league, and you were deeply involved from the start in that, including winning a title in the first year. What has the growth of the professional sport meant to you as somebody who obviously cares deeply about the sport?
I think it's so exciting to watch, being able to give young girls an opportunity to have that dream to want to play sports professionally. I think is huge. It, you know, gives them the opportunity to strive to want to get to college, to be able to play on the USA team, but then also to be a professional athlete. You know, I know the players that are in it now. You know, they are honored and humbled to be able to be that representation and to be able to say I'm a professional athlete, but to also grow the game for the next set of athletes, you know, coming up in the game. I know my assistant coach, Amanda Johansson, takes a lot of pride in that. You know, she plays on the professional teams, and she definitely takes a lot of pride saying that she's a professional athlete, but also helping to grow the game for the next generation of athletes in the game of lacrosse.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed on the women's side. The professional athletes, they're deeply involved in helping to grow the game, and that's obviously a huge part of it, as it's a growing league. What made you decide to get involved at such an early part in the infancy of these professional leagues? As you coached, I believe the New York Fight was the first team you coached, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I think my playing days were just over at that point to want to try to get back in it to play. And I had the opportunity to get involved and, you know, to be able to get involved in the league and, you know, help out in any way I can. And, you know, I was asked to coach, and, you know, I thought it was an honor to be able to coach in the league, especially the first professional league there was, and just to help grow the game and to get out there and get in front of people and to see those young girls excited. And I also think that the professional league does a really great job at advancing the game in rules and being able to be a platform for the NCAA to look at different rules and different ways to be able to play the game, so our game continues to grow.
Yeah, that's well said. It really has been a help to the NCAA. You can see that these rules. I mean, I think they even tried the 2-point goal in one year, didn't they, recently?
They did. They do have a 2-point goal. It's outside the 8. If you score from outside the 8, it's 2 points.
Yeah, I don't know if that one ever makes the college game, but it certainly added to the excitement of the pro league, didn't it?
It did add to the excitement, and it made you, you know, be very, you know, if you're at the end of the game and if you're losing 9-8, it was make sure you're getting out on their hands, or, you know, if you're in a position and there's only 10 seconds left in the game, instead of looking for that one goal, there's not a lot of time, you can always take that 2-point goal as well. So it makes it challenging, but it also makes it fun at the same time.
Again, Hofstra fans, will be with Coach Smith for another 20 minutes-ish. If you have questions for Coach, you can put them in the chat window on the YouTube page, and we'll get to them in due time. Coach, you've been inducted into 2 Hall of Fames in your career now. Most recently, the Northwestern Athletics Hall of Fame, and then right before that, they were right on top of each other. The Suffolk Sports Hall of Fame, led by the executive director, our great friend Chris Vaccaro. What were those moments like when you kind of are saluted for the player you were and what you've accomplished?
Super honored for both. Obviously, was really excited and you know, blown away for the opportunity to be inducted into the Northwestern Hall of Fame, just for the tremendous athletes that have come through that program, but also never thought that I would be inducted into a Hall of Fame or that soon. And then it was even more exciting to be able to share it with John Scherner, who was, he was my age, played on the men's basketball team. So to be able to do it with someone that I was friends with for 4 years and grew up with in college, I think was really exciting. And it was a really special moment to share with my family. A bunch of my teammates were out there, and it was fun to get back to Northwestern's campus. It's hard sometimes with also being a college coach and missing out on those alumni events. So it was definitely exciting to get back out there to see the campus, meet some of the players on the team, and just speak to them. And then obviously the Suffolk County Hall of Fame was a tremendous honor as well. A lot of really great athletes and people and coaches have come off of Long Island. So to be able to, and in Suffolk County, to be able to be recognized and to be inducted was an extreme honor as well.
Tonight was supposed to be actually the dinner. Rick Cole was going to get inducted tonight. They've obviously moved it temporarily to later in the year, but yeah, that was an incredible honor. I forget if he was inducted or if he was the MC. You were very excited by the fact that Michael Wilbon was involved. Wilbon was involved at the Northwestern one. Was he the MC, or what was his?
He was also inducted when I was there as well, Michael Wilbon. He obviously has a great connection to Northwestern and, has really great pride with Northwestern. And his niece actually also played on our lacrosse team. So I got to know him that way as well throughout my career at Northwestern too.
Let's move on to your Hofstra coaching career. It's kind of the end of the Shannon Smith career arc right now. It's still in progress. What has this 8-year run taught you as the head coach of Hofstra that you've think about the most?
Definitely have learned a lot. And I think one thing is it's crazy how each year is so different from the next. You can have some of the same student athletes that come back, but each year is so different from the next. And just the stories and the memories and the journey that you go on with those student athletes on the team with your staff is really tremendous. And some of the years do blend together, but I think just the memories and the learning lessons and the bus trips and some of the big wins that you have, they are all truly special moments, throughout the career.
That your first really great team was that 2015 team led by Britton Altamare, and you guys went undefeated in the league play during the regular season. Was there a point that year you knew you had a special team? Obviously, you didn't end up getting to the level you wanted to, but the team really had an incredible year. Like I said, you went 6-0 in league play that year. What was it about that team that was so special?
Tremendous leaders, tremendous senior class. Britton, Kelsey Gregerson, April Ionetta. They were 3 tremendous players who occupied different areas of the field and really, helped our program throughout my time being there. I got to coach them for 3 years, and I think just the belief that they had in what we were doing. I could be a little off, but I'm pretty sure at the end of March in that season, before the season started, we always knew we could be good. I think at the end of March, we had a really tough loss to Ohio State at Ohio State. And I think really, it was a turning moment for our program. And I think from there, it just really inspired them, made them more competitive and, really got after it in CAA play in the month of April. And, it was really exciting to be able to go 6-0. And I wish that season could have ended differently. But I think the accomplishments that class made and that team made was really tremendous to see now that you look back on it.
Yeah, and obviously we mentioned her before, but Britton Altamare was an All-American that season. The first one you've coached at Hofstra. What's the realization knowing that you've helped a player in some way, shape, or form get to the pinnacle of their sport?
Yeah, you can help and you can guide a player, but at the end of the day, it's up to them. Britton had tremendous work ethic and she had the will to want to be great. She was always putting in the extra work out there on the field, whether it was shooting or dodging. I remember, towards the end of her career, we also had to have her take the draw for us as well. And just her willingness to be able to help the team and, to be able to put herself and the team in a position to be successful, was really tremendous to see. And, I think she had a really great class that continued to push her as well within, April and Kelsey. But Britton, was a tremendous force for us on the offensive side of the field, and at points definitely carried our team.
Yeah, obviously Kelsey has continued her career into the professional ranks and become one of the best goalies in the WPLL. And then April Ionetta, maybe the most underrated player in maybe Hofstra lacrosse history. She was such a great two-way player and just could control a game in every aspect, right?
Yeah. So April just has this confidence about her when she steps on the field that, she's going to beat whoever she's going against. And I think that's something you can't teach someone. It was something really great about April. And I think she helped get that confidence to other players on the team throughout her career there. Interesting story about April. She used to play attack, and after a couple of weeks of practice, I called her in the office when I first started, and I said, listen, we have to move you to defense because in order to be successful, and you needed a really good defense to build up to your offense. And I said, we'll still use you on offense in key moments, and you have the ability and the green light to take the ball over in transition to score goals. And I think there was a little hesitation at first, but she came a CAA Defender of the Year twice. And I think, she also had some big plays for us off the draw circle, or whether it was scoring goals. So she was definitely one of the most underrated players I've ever coached, that is for sure. And especially in Hofstra, with just not receiving as much press as everyone else, but also the success that she had as a player, and, the swagger that she brought on the field, really helped our team. And then Kelsey Gregerson, I think she's also a very underrated goalie out there. She's tremendous, has tremendous goalie in the cage. And she definitely, as much as Britton, carried us at points on offense, Kelsey carried us at points on the defensive side of the field, having some unbelievable saves. I don't even know how she comes up with some of them. And it was really fun being able to coach her professionally as well. And, they all do a really great job coming back and supporting the players and watching our games as well. So, definitely really fun to get to coach all three of them.
We have a couple of questions from the chat window. Let's see what we got here. What one piece of advice would you give to a up and coming lacrosse player as they're getting ready to advance their career, maybe getting into the college level?
I think the first advice I would give is to get on the wall, put the extra work in. I think that's something that a lot of, kids might not do, is to put that extra work in. And I know at a young age, the wall was one of my best friends, being able to get your stick work up to that next level. And then if you're, being able to craft your skill, as an attacker in midi, being able to have some really great dodges, being able to finish the ball. And I think just working hard and, figuring it out, working hard and never stopping until you get to where you want. I think those are the people that really get to the next level.
I think I might know the answer to this question just because of recency bias, but what win stands out the most to you while you've been the head coach at Hofstra?
Three things. One, I'd also play as many sports as you can as a young kid and do well academically. There is two wins that really stand out. Obviously this year, our win over Hopkins was just tremendous. Tremendous. I think we were down by 4 or 5 goals at one point, and just being able to get over that hurdle, and to be able to continue to have that drive and never letting down. Our senior leadership really showed in that game. And I think our other win would be our big win that we had over JMU at Hofstra. I can't remember what year it was, but there was a big fog. It was a night game. There was a big fog that came over on the field. It was coming in. I can't remember the year, but it was a big win as well for the program.
The other one that comes to mind, just because of the quirkiness of it, was I think it was 2015 actually, was the win over Towson when they.
Oh yes.
The stick situation. I mean, it turned out to be a great win because it allowed you guys to be undefeated in the conference that year, but it was obviously one of those quirky lacrosse rules that obviously benefited Hofstra that year.
Yes, I do remember that as well.
So let's talk about 2019. We'll we have about a few more minutes to go. This was obviously the most remarkable year in good and bad, in ways that you could ever imagine coaching lacrosse. Your team came in with incredible high hopes. You put together a schedule to match those high hopes. And then 7 games in, your season's cut short. What was that moment like? Obviously, it was the week of the Boston College game. You played Boston College on that Wednesday. Obviously, news was coming out fast and furious that whole week. Do you remember the moment when you kind of knew what was about to happen, and then what was the moment like when you brought the team together to tell?
Yeah, it was a crazy 24 hours, that is for sure. But I think you started to have some doubt seep in right before our Maryland game. There was the news. We played Maryland on that Saturday and then BC on that Wednesday. And when we were traveling to Maryland, there was letters were coming out about COVID-19 and not shaking hands at the end of the game and doing stick taps. And then as we were going to Boston College, it was making sure that Boston College is still hosting the game, getting up there, and more news started to come out about COVID-19. And as we were up there, then there was talk about conferences ending their seasons. And right before our game started, that's when the Ivy League came out and said they were done for the remainder of the year. And the Patriot League was talking about it. So we had an idea after that Boston College game was over that could have been our last game, or potentially last game for a few weeks before, things calmed down. So we did talk to our team about it, the realization. Obviously, everyone has phones, social media, and they were going to see that the Ivy League canceled the remainder of their season. And both on the men's and women's side, strictly for lacrosse, there's a lot of teams in the top 10. So we talked about it with our team and our seniors after that Boston College game. And on our bus ride home, I remember turning around to Amanda saying, I think our seasons might be done. The NBA just canceled its remainder of the season. They went on pause. And when you saw that, you just knew that there was going to be more things that were going to continue to happen. And then it started to come out that people were getting COVID-19. So it was a lot. And then the next day, that's when everything happened with the CAA going on pause. And then the NCAA made their announcements of, canceling its championship season. So within 24 hours right after our game, there was a lot of team meetings, phone calls, and I think our kids handled it with a lot of grace and a lot of positivity. And there was some tears in that locker room, and definitely, it's definitely a surreal moment, but our kids handled it with a lot of grace and positivity, knowing that they had to be part of the bigger team at that moment.
We'll talk about the season here for a little bit. We touched on it a little bit, but there were some real great positives, and your team really fought in a couple of other games as well. Your season opening game against USC really set the groundwork for that. You thought you probably had a special team. You led them late, and they obviously came back to win. But you then kind of did the same thing to Johns Hopkins a few weeks later. What happened in that Johns Hopkins game that gave you belief that you could come back in that game? Like you said, you trailed by a lot, and then it obviously went into overtime, and with Alyssa Perella scoring whatever it was, 7 goals that game. What was the what happened in that game that allowed you to still believe that your team could do it?
Yeah, so we had an injury in the beginning of the game, and so we had to get our feet back underneath us defensively. And I thought that Darcy Smith did a really great job at coming up with a couple big ground balls, turnovers in that game.
She also scored a goal.
And she also had like a huge goal there in the first half, nice little shimmy move to the goal, and she went hard. And then I think that Alexis Matera started to play really hard for us in the midfield. Alyssa was making some unbelievable shots. We had some other attackers coming up with big goals. I remember Erin Demick had one there. And then I think in the second half, we were fired up coming out of the locker room, and then we had a really slow start again. But I think that we made an adjustment on the draw circle, and we went with Darcy and Alexa on the draw on the outside, and we put Alyssa on the circle. props to Alyssa stepping up. She didn't really take draws up to that point. She has in the past, but not up to that point in the season. And those three didn't want to lose, and they fought hard for the ball. And then, our team just started to continue to gain momentum. And I just think it was a refusal from our team. They didn't want to lose. And that was just something that we kept talking about in all of our timeouts was chip away, take the time, keep believing, and just have that refuse to lose attitude.
Your team had a remarkable senior class this year, and it's kind of now broken off into two different groups, which is kind of the interesting part of the dynamics of the spring sports this year in the NCAA. Of the 6 seniors you had, 3 are returning next year, with the NCAA allowing that, and 3 are not. What are your thoughts on the 6 that in as a group and kind of what they meant to your program? And then we'll get into a little more.
The 6 seniors are unbelievable, unbelievable people for what they have done from this program from day one, their buy-in, their leadership, and just putting the team before themselves. And it's not something easy to do. And it's something that the 6 of them believed in, and they did. And they were there for every single person on the team, all 6 of them. And, we definitely talked to all of them. It was funny to watch how much they all individually have grown up since day one as freshmen in the dorm. So, just really thankful. This backlash really helped get this program to where it's at right now, and really thankful for everything they have done. And, really sad that all 6 of them couldn't come back and all of them finish it out together, but really thankful for everything that they have done, and, really wish all of them the best.
Yeah, and you just mentioned it. 3 are coming back. Darcy Smith, Alyssa Perella, and Alexa Matera. Literally 3 of the greatest players that have played for Hofstra in its history. It's a really remarkable group that has decided to return for your program in 2021. What do those 3 bring to your program?
It's hard to describe the 3 of them.
Other than goals, assists, draw controls.
They bring a lot of leadership and personality to the team, and work ethic. They from day one, they've had an interesting ride, roller coaster, the 3 of them, but they have meant so much to this program and to this team. And they've done a lot, both on and off the field. They excel well academically. They excel well, in Hofstra's athletics program, supporting other teams. And they're just, all 3 of them are really tremendous people and tremendous friends. But we definitely would not be where we are without them. And we're thankful to have them back, and very lucky.
Alexa Matera is kind of the interesting one. I kind of compare her to April Ionetta. She kind of gets overshadowed. Maybe one of the more underrated players in Hofstra history. She does everything for your team whenever you need it. And she's kind of similar to you growing up. She played a lot of sports in high school. What makes her such a great lacrosse player?
Yeah, she was a big basketball player. So I think part of that recruiting process was convincing her to play lacrosse at the next level. And, I think as a freshman, she was maybe a little timid and just finding her way as a person, as an athlete, as a student. And from her freshman year on, sophomore, junior, and senior, you could just see the development in her as a player. And each year she continues to get better. So, there's still, we were laughing about having her 5th year because she says, she tells me everything's going to come together in her 5th year and I won't have to tell her anything. She'll know everything that she needs to do. So it's definitely a laugh that we have. She's just meant so much. She does all the little things properly for us in between the 30s, and the development of her game on the offensive side of the field has been tremendous. And we asked a lot of her this year. We asked a lot of her playing midfield for a full 60 minutes on the field without coming off. And, one thing about Alexis, she's very tough. Last year in our CAA tournament, we had a big layover before our Towson game played, and then there's a rainstorm, then we went back out. But the one thing about Alexa was she got the flu the night before, 2 days before this game even took place. So it was a rough couple of days. And, then she has to sit in a hot locker room while she's sick. And she played lights out in that game for us. And she's very tough and a motivated kid. And, she's been really fun to watch her and coach her as well.
Yeah, it rained a little bit that night. I remember it. So Darcy Smith, did you envision her becoming the greatest draw control specialist in program history when you recruited her?
We should have started her on day one since her freshman year. It's a joke that we say to her because she really only started taking the draws during her junior season, and it's something that she's really taken hard and has really worked really hard on with Coach Amanda, and has put a lot of extra work in it as well. And she's just grown so much on the draws, and hopefully she'll have 200 plus for us next season and in the draws. So Darcy, if you see this, that's our expectation. But we should have started her on day one, looking back on it on the draws, but she's got a heart of gold and is going to fight hard for that ground ball. And she works really hard to be able to craft her skill.
And just to clarify, Coach, for everyone watching, how many Smiths on your team are you related to?
I'm only related to one Smith on our team, and
it's not Darcy.
And it's not Darcy. That would be our goalkeeper, Jessica Aaron.
There we go. And what's that?
Her name's really Jessica. I just call her Jessica Aaron because it's her middle name, but her name's really just Jess.
I'm sure she appreciates that. And then we'll close on the seniors. Alyssa Perella, obviously, will go down in history as probably the greatest player that's ever played for Hofstra. A remarkable scoring assist, kind of fully the total package on the field. What have you seen from her development from her freshman year as a CA Rookie of the Year to now back-to-back All-American seasons?
She's just gotten better each year. You tell Alyssa to do something, and at the end of the year, when you're like, all right, Alyssa, this is what you have to do to get better, to be better next season. She goes and does it. And I think her speed and her athleticism, her first step is the quickest first step I've ever seen or I've ever played with. Not that I played with her, but on the teams I've been on, quickest first step I've ever seen. And, after her junior year, she had such a tremendous season, and we sat in that office and I said, we gotta get better. And I think you're going to get better by scoring lefty goals and really working on your left hand and, developing that left side. So it opens up your right hand more. And it was something that it was a battle for her all fall with the addition to Sabrina and always having that mark up. And, as the season went on, it started to get easier and it started to pay off. And, it's the first thing I think we said to one another at the Hopkins win, because she had an unbelievable dodge to her left hand and a great goal. So it's something that, you give Alyssa something and she's going to go 100% at it to be the best at it. And something that, I really love about her. And it was the same thing her junior year. They were heavily guarding her on dodges, and it was sometimes hard to get open. So, we really worked on cutting, and because she's so quick and hard to cover, that she scored a lot of goals cutting last year. So I think it's just, she's become a real student of the game, and it's always about how can I get better? How can I help this team? And her work ethic is really tremendous. Always setting an example that way as well.
Well, Coach, it's been a great hour taking a look at your career, the Hofstra Women's Lacrosse program, and everything in between. We thank you for your time tonight, and we stay safe, be well, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate you having me.
Great. And again, Hofstra fans, thanks for tuning in tonight. We'll talk again soon. Go Pride.